Currently. So, hi, good afternoon, guys. We're just waiting for a few more to join, so we'll probably just hang back for about 60 seconds, and then we'll kick off with the introduction. Okay, I think we've only got 3 or 4 more to join. So, let's start. I mean, first of all, I just wanted to thank everybody for taking the time out to actually log on and listen to what we've got to say. And hopefully this will be able to put a different spin on API Global and just open your eyes in terms of what we actually can and can't do and why we are so different compared to all our competitors. So we've got myself, David Deveco. I'm a regional account manager for API based in Asia. I look after Thailand and surrounding areas like Vietnam, Cambodia, and so on. And we've got a guest today, Sam Crabtree, who's the head of UAE property. And Sam is going to go through the exciting part of the presentation, which is essentially explaining to you the reasons why UAE is an attractive market at this stage. So I'll jump into a presentation that we've prepared for you guys. This basically, the first couple of slides is simply just to give you a bit of a breakdown on API and sort of tell you a little bit more about who we are. So obviously the presentation today is going to be mainly about the UAE, but who is API? We are a global property company. We're a global presence of 16 offices across the globe. As you can see, all the major destinations. If we don't have an office on the ground, we've got an advisor who's always available to help. But it just gives you that sort of broader picture that, you know, wherever you are, wherever your clients may be, will be able to step in and actually offer the support that you may need, whether it comes to investment advice or admin support, you name it. In terms of the actual umbrella of API Global and the group that we work with, I think one of the main reasons why we pride ourselves in the service that we provide is mainly the A to Z service that we are able to give to our clients. So it's essentially like we're able to hold their hand throughout the entire process. So it's not just about being able to put the investment proposition on the table. It's more about being able to nurture the client throughout the entire process. So for example, if they need mortgage advice or if they need lending in areas like UK or the UAE, we've got Valorum, who's our lending broker. We then have Redstone, who essentially helps clients maintain and manage properties on their behalf, which gives you a great hands-off approach to property investing, because essentially, you know, most of your clients will be based offshore. They're not on the ground. They don't want to be dealing with a phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning to say that, you know, the boiler's broke. So Redstone is a company which manages that extremely efficiently, and it gives the clients the ability to be able to sort of purchase the asset, put it on the shelf, enjoy the monthly income from it, and not have to worry about, you know, the issues that might pop up later on down the line. We then go on to the entire A to Z service, like I mentioned earlier. So we cover every single angle of property investing. Okay, so market research, we go out there and we actually speak to developers on the client's behalf. We source the projects for them. We then give investment advice to basically give them an idea which area would be the most prominent to look at a current stage. We've got things like legal support, obviously, when it comes to lending, building updates, mortgage support, golden visa opportunities, which Sam is actually going to touch on today, I believe, in the presentation. The UAE offers some fantastic opportunities. And then we've got obviously lettings and management and the portfolio optimization. So with that in mind, you know, when you actually develop a relationship with API, we are there to help you throughout the entire journey. So, you know, you purchase your first property, but later on down the line, you might want to release some equity and then expand that portfolio. that's where we come into play. It's all about building that long-term relationship with yourselves and with our clients. Sales performance. This is just a slide that I wanted to sort of point out to everybody, purely to give you an idea of how big API actually is, because there's many competitors out there that do a very similar, that have a very similar business model. However, on the global scale, I mean, the company's been established since 2013. We've been running for 13 years, and we've done over 2 billion in sales. So, I mean, that number is absolutely huge when we look at our competitors. You know, and it just gives you an idea of how wide our audience is, and how many clients we've actually served and delivered. And yeah, and obviously today is going to be all about the UAE. So why do we think that Dubai, Ras Al Khaimah, and Abu Dhabi are the markets to look at? And that's where Sam will come in. So I'd like to introduce Sam. Thank you very much. You can step in and take over the presentation, Sam.
Thanks very much, Dave. Thanks from myself for everyone that's joining today, and nice to meet you. So why the UAE? Why now? I think it's relevant to point out that a lot of you will know our business for the UK model. Dave's touched on the numbers that we do, well, from inception, but also on a yearly basis. But it's the same fundamentals in that approach that we've adopted to the UAE market. So we launched around the start of last year, so around 12 months in this market. And that's not to say that we've not had our eyes on the market for previous years. Okay, over the last 4 years, questions have come to us by many investors, by many agents, asking if they can get access to a UAE market, if we can get them this development or that development. Now, for many reasons, we haven't stepped in, okay? But now we felt as a company that time is right. Now, it basically comes down to the key fundamentals that underpin the market, okay? Now, in the UK, very heavily regulated environment. We've seen that through the results, the performance over the test of time. It's the UAE that's now mimicking that market, okay? So there's a few government-led bodies that regulate that. The first one I want to touch on is RERA. They're the Real Estate Regulatory Agency. Essentially, they're the regulatory arm of the Dubai Land Department. Dubai Land Department governs the whole property infrastructure in Dubai, okay? What they're doing is handing out the licenses to developers. They're approving and signing off-plan project launches. They enforce escrow accounts to be set up before launch, okay? And that was one of the fundamentals for us. And we will touch on this later on in client protection, but how is clients' money? How are your clients' money? How is it being protected? It's fundamental. Escrow accounts mean that all funds are put into that account, all funds are protected. Again, it doesn't make too much of a difference when we're dealing with these tier one developers, the master players in their own right, but better to be putting our money in the safest possible pockets. Okay, so RERA regulate advertising, pricing, disclosures, sales conduct, whatever it may be, from the top down. The second one, Dubai Land Department. As I say, they govern the real estate market. Okay, they register your title. They put you down as an ownership or an owner. Okay, they hold the authority in delegating land, setting up those escrow accounts. The next one is Dubai Rest. Dubai Rest is the real estate sales transaction platform, essentially being on the front foot. They're setting up applications that allow this to all be digital. That includes you not having to be in Dubai to sign for a property, for example. I mean, all of these things essentially have allowed us to step into the market and essentially given the strong fundamentals in which we place on any market. So to touch on those, we're looking at population growth that is structural. It's not structural and organic. The demand is led from the employers, the big companies that are moving to Dubai. Okay, the many people that come with that. The government-led initiatives that we're going to hone in on today, the 2040 Master Plan, the D33 economic agenda, they're fundamental to any forward-moving economy. Again, the controlled supply. Okay, despite headlines, supply is controlled. And again, it's about keeping up with the demand, in which we're not. Essentially, the strong rental yields that we are seeing returns that are not possible in many other markets globally. again, it's not the Dubai market over any other market. It's the Dubai market in line with other markets, the diversification of your property part of that portfolio. Now, again, benefits that come from API Global include early access. You know, we have had schemes with pre-launch discounts, and we have pre-negotiated the best payment plans for you or your clients. Now, the reason for that is lower net outgoing equals higher rate of return, and we're always trying to increase that ROI based on what we do as a business, the fundamentals we've built on, as Dave touched on. Now, why invest in Dubai? Okay, you know, GDP per capita, it's a very safe economy. Now, we're going to run over the investment story or how we've got to where we are, but, you know, tourism's rife. The new Al Maktoum Airport is going to be fundamental to the growth in Dubai, seeing 290 million passengers come through each year. Dubai is a very transient city in that we need to be holding on to the capital that we can do. It's about keeping capital in Dubai. That's going to be fundamental to its growth. But that comes with it being very livable, very safe, very secure. People are getting paid more. You know, wages are more linear to cost of living as opposed to what we see in other countries at the moment. I mean, whatever economical crisis that we see, and we could name a few, right? But Dubai does seem a world away from that. And on that basis, it seems quite a safe investment to sort of, or point funds in the direction of Dubai at this present moment. Now, from a tax perspective, you know, it's zero tax if you're in Dubai. That's something that needs to be discussed with an accountant, let's say. But depending on your jurisdiction, you know, for the UK, it's how many days you spend in the country a year, you are taxed as a UK resident or not. Okay, so that is something that needs to be discussed further. But for those living, working, residing in Dubai, it is a zero tax environment. The main one is 100% ownership. A lot of people aren't aware that, you know, you are buying a freehold title in Dubai. Okay, that was introduced in 2002 and was really fundamental to the growth that we've seen today. But ultimately, the reason why we've stepped in this market is safety and returns. The returns you can get here and now and what we foresee over the next 10, 15, 20 years, again, that long-term vision, again, relating to a mature market or a market that's seeing a maturing phase is crucial to why we're advising clients into it. So the growth story is important, okay? The real parts for us, you'll see a couple of icons on the screen that are notable. You've got the Burj Al Arab that was built. You've got the Palm in 2007. You've got the Burj Khalifa in 2010. The points we want to make note of really are the two initiatives, the D33 or agenda, which was announced in 2033, and the 2040 master plan. The next key part is really Expo Dubai. Expo Dubai in 2020 was a time where a lot of people realized that Dubai was very livable. You know, it welcomed businesses from all corners of the globe, and in that, a lot of people that hadn't been here before. Okay, their first time in Dubai, they may have heard of many stereotypes. I mean, I know for one, when I moved to Dubai, you know, 5 years ago, things that were said from friends and family just, you know, aren't true. And in that, it's a very warm, welcome Western society that allows for anyone that's going to add to the economy, is going to add value to live a very good life. And that really opened the door, and where we saw another spike in the property investment because, you know, it turned many stereotypes on its head. Now, to touch on the initiatives, Golden Visa first. So for many, getting residency in Dubai is not just about owning a property. Okay. Yes, the property is a good entry into Dubai, and this is what we'll focus on today. But the perks that come with it are also great from an investment perspective. First of all, to get a golden visa, it's a 10-year golden visa. You need to invest 2 million or above in property value. From an investment perspective, that's 1 million dirham you're going to need for an off-plan project. Okay, you require 50% without payment plans, and that 1 million gets you that golden visa. Now, to break that down further, of that 1 million dirham, that payment plan will be structured over, let's say, a 2-year period. So the golden visa, or where you can apply for the golden visa, actually happens when you pay the first 20% and then the 4% DLD. So DLD is the Dubai land tax essentially, and that is similar to stamp duty for those of you that know the UK market well, or what need me to refer to that. But when that first 24% of the property is paid, 20% down payment, 4% DLD, you're able to pay for your golden visa and get the perks that come with that during the build of the property, which is unbeknown to many. Now it gets you 10-year renewable residency. You don't need a local sponsor, as in you don't need an employer. You've got the ability to bring your family on board and also domestic staff if you've got a maid or anything like that. But the main thing is you've got access to the UAE banking system and also the investment opportunities that come with that. So the first one for us from an investment perspective, you get residency rates having a golden visa. That means your mortgage would be 3.99% and lower. If you're not a resident, you're probably looking at 5.49%. To put that into perspective, if you're buying a property in Dubai at 2 million dirham for the purpose of the golden visa, you're going to probably end up paying around 850,000 dirham, let's call it £250,000 more in the property lifespan of that mortgage, a 25-year term, which then means from an economical perspective, getting that visa on the onset makes a lot of sense with securing the investment. Now, once you've got that golden visa, you can then invest in other assets in the UAE, the stock market. And I mean, from a livable place, we talked about Dubai being transient, but a lot of people do end up coming for a few months and staying in Dubai. You can get rental apartments, you can get car loans, etc. It just opens up a lot more doors to make this place livable, which is key. Now, moving on to the 2040 master plan. This is very much the most important or one of the most important fundamentals in the investment. Okay. Essentially, if we take out all of the fluff of the master plan, the number one part that we're focused on is the supply and demand, the population increase. Bottom right of the screen. When this was launched, we were at about 3.3 million people. The target was to hit 5.8 million by 2040. We've just passed 4 million at the end of last year. We're ahead of schedule by a long shot. The forecasts are assuming 6.8 million would be now more of a realistic target. Now, in that, we've got to look at the supply of new homes that are coming to market, and not just the numbers that hit the headlines, but the numbers that are actually completing. Again, we look at tier 1 developers versus tier 2 developers and tier 3 and beyond. Okay, of that, we're probably going to see 60% of the scheduled apartments complete. Now, how we look at it, without going into numbers too much today, it is something that you can get in contact after, and we provide the data on. Demand is a lot higher than supply, and it continues to outpace that by a long shot over the next 5 years. So however way we look at it, from any investment angle, when demand outstrips supply, prices go up. And that's why we see the prices of Dubai still being relatively strong from an investor perspective. The other areas of the 2040 master plan are characterized around making the place more livable, whether it's an increase in beach length, whether it's more greenery. Okay, it's attracting those Westerners, for example, that are used to the greenery or the wellness or the country or the beach, and giving Dubai that option. All in all, this government-backed master plan, the funding, the infrastructure that's on display and will continue to come in, is driving the country exactly where they need it to be or want it to be ahead of time. Globally, there isn't more infrastructure or more investment being invested through infrastructure, which again is fundamental to where we are and why we're investing. Again, you can go into these in a lot of detail. I want to touch on a few things today. Now, major areas. Just to give you a bit of orientation on the map, we touched on key locations at the start. You've got the Burj Khalifa, where my cursor is here. You've got the Burj Al Arab, again, where my cursor is. You've got the Palm Jumeirah here. You've got the new Palm Jebel Ali, 3 times the size of the existing Palm. And you've got the new airport, Al Maktoum. This is the old airport, or the current airport, should we say. Al Maktoum Airport will be in operation by 2032, seeing the 290 million passengers. Okay, and this is a new corridor for Dubai. But let's strip things back. Firstly, for our investors, or those of you that know the UK market, or those of you that have people that want to invest in Dubai, there is still so much value to be had in investing in core areas. We're going to touch on that in relative to the D33 agenda shortly. Other areas along Sheikh Zayed and other key arteries running through Dubai, we will identify and build an investment case around. Depending on budget is ultimately where you invest. But to give you an orientation of the map and how it works from a zoning perspective, if you look at my cursor, that would be Sheikh Zayed Road. It's the main artery or main road running through Dubai. Zone 1 would be this block here, beachfront and city centre living, marked by the Burj Khalifa, the Dubai International Financial Centre and the Business Centre. You've then got block 2 in behind, block 3 and further afield. Again, to be broken down in more detail at another point, but it gives you a little bit of an understanding how the map works. And in relative perspective to that, price per square foot tends to go or drop as we move further into the desert, let's say. The D33 economic agenda is fundamental to where we're taking the country to, the city to in a short term. By 2033, the aim is to double GDP. Now, however way you want to look at it, however way Dubai is welcoming the investment, whether it's through the Golden Visa, which is another infrastructure-led development plan, isn't it? It's welcoming capital from a retail perspective, making you set up and see the perks of living in Dubai. But from an institutional perspective, whether it's through foreign trade, private investment, or whatever sector, they're welcoming money as long as it benefits the economy. So doubling GDP, in turn, doubles cost of living. Okay, doubling cost of living increases property prices. Okay, it's a key metric that is easy to navigate. It just makes the place more expensive. The thing, or the main point again, to narrow in on the agenda that I want to focus on or turn your attention to is, again, we know how these things work, but if we look at the financial positioning, okay, so 2 main goals are to make Dubai a top 4 country on the financial positioning or the financial center rankings. If you think about New York, London, Hong Kong, Shanghai, any of those key cities sitting above Dubai, we're at 11, okay, aiming to be top 4. We then have to revert back to property. What is the price per square foot of these countries to get in a central core area? And how is that relative to where we are in your downtown, your DIFC and your business bay today? Now, without going into the ballpark of numbers too much, you're at a third of where these other cities lie. Now, if you've got the belief and the foresight that I do, and many do in Dubai, that is exactly where the value lies. Although we may be at the top of our price per square foot from a historical speaking level, there is so much more growth in making it comparable to other key cities, which Dubai is definitely in the same conversation as, but doesn't necessarily replicate that in a price per square foot scenario. So from a central zone perspective, from a low risk perspective, still going in them zones makes a lot of sense. Other areas where it's been ranked high as a tier 1 city is in infrastructure and aesthetics, basically how the city looks, which we can all agree with. Proven track record is fundamental to what we do. We're dealing with tier 1 developers, okay? Those developers have track record that spans the history of Dubai. We've got preferential terms, as I say, a few of the names are on screen, and we will hand pick and select projects for you or your clients. Now that, again, you know, is us sitting here and doing our research daily. You know, based on budget, we present an option. So our lowest investment, let's say, would start from 1 million dirham. Of that 1 million dirham, you're going to need circa 500,000 dirham to put towards that property over the build, leaving you to mortgage the rest as a ballpark. Now, whether it's 1 million dirham, 2 million dirham, or 4 million dirham, we've got different options that slot into each budget. We'll present you with the several options that make sense, and ultimately you can make the decision on those 3 options, which one you prefer to go to. But all of them have been vetted against the market heavily. To give you another unbelievable statistic, last year, on average, a property was launched every 17 hours in Dubai. With that, you've got to be very skeptical. You've got to remove the emotion. You've got to remove the hype. You've got to remove the noise. We've got to relate this investment back to the fundamentals that we have done for many years in the UK. Okay, location, tenant demand, macro factors that are driving it. You'll see some big names such as Emaar, Nikhil, Damak, Maras all on screen. Again, we can get access to anything in Dubai. If it's a specialist need you require, such as Aldar, for example, there was an Aldar launch and, we sold out in 12 hours. We were able to get 5 of our clients units due to having preferential terms with them, okay? This is a new phenomenon that, is unbeknown anywhere else in the world, but it's called the expression of interest. Essentially, when a new launch is coming, and generally it's from these big government-backed developers in key areas, key plot of land that offers a lot of growth potential, they take what's called an expression of interest. What that does is secures your interest in the property pre-launch. You've then got to have the right relationships with the developer to be able to secure you a unit. If not, you're just a fish in a big pond, or a small fish in a big pond. So it's essentially securing off-market or pre-launch elements that are going to sell out. It doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. It's a very different method. It's about getting organized. It's about being made aware of what's in the market today and what's to come. And it's about pulling the trigger fairly quickly. There's no time to hesitate with these developments. But in that, that demand is spelling out that it's going to be a very good investment for multiple reasons. In that case, myself and Dave can help in notifying yourself and clients of new launches to start to get ready for. The reality is, if you haven't seen this a million times in Dubai, you may miss out on one launch, but then we can get you ready for another launch. Okay, it's all about being prepared in a fast-paced market. Protecting clients is fundamental, right? Fund security and escrow, true transparency is really the name of the game in this market. There's 2 online platforms that we can relate to. Any of the data that's given or presented to you from any agents, us included, can be fact-checked online. You've got Property Monitor and DXB Interact. Now, essentially, they are both transparent property platforms that, from a rental or investor perspective, log every single transaction in Dubai. From that point of view, you can see where the market is, where it's going. The first thing you can identify is that the Dubai market isn't a bubble through the continuous transactions that we see. It's got the numbers from supply and demand as well. The platform's really fun when you get used to how it navigates. But we can look at rents. So rents and the cash flow are bang on where we are in the market today. We can look at prices on launch versus prices on sale today, profit in those areas, median price per square foot price in the area, and strategically make sure the investment makes sense from the ground up. Low capital exposure comes from the fact that we're pre-negotiating the payment plan. We are getting payment plans that aren't necessarily available, throughout the whole market. But again, that's testament to our UK side of the business and the name that we've developed off that. Ultimately, we are here to branch out your portfolio. The quickest wins we had was bringing UK money over to Dubai. The many clients that have invested with us for the last 14 years who have had growth in that property, we've been able to refinance with rates being favorable these days and bring that money into Dubai and buy a property here. That's how you diversify and use leverage to buy a portfolio, and what we advise on from the day one. In that instance, we can then manipulate markets, we can manipulate currency, we can definitely diversify further if it's so meant to a lifestyle property in Bali or Thailand, for example. But that's how we're looking at this from the top down. The last thing I want to touch on is, second last actually. This has all been built on strategy. There's 3 strategies. The first strategy is that core strategy. When you saw me highlight the Burj Khalifa, that is the central zone that offers so much value compared to comparable cities. That is a risk-adverse strategy in investing in a AAA area at the early stages. And I would still class them as the early stages when we look over the next 20 years. The second part is the growth and emerging communities, identifying where that 2040 master plan money is being directed to, what infrastructure is being built around it, where's the new train line going, where's the Dubai Loop going, taking into all these considerations and getting in early, a bit more foresight, a bit of a longer time horizon, maybe a longer build on the property. But we could be looking at 9-10% returns on a yearly appreciation and yield at that point. The last one is, it's quite important to highlight this, is for a long time we never saw any institutional money come into Dubai. Okay, we're now seeing that from some of our bigger partners in the UK, and it's a telltale to how they see the market and the mature sector that it's moving into. We can group buys together, we can then incentivize discounts if we were to bring a conglomerate of buyers into a floor. Some wealth managers have looked into running this model and getting their clients in below market. But if we incorporate all these strategies, we've got one strategy that's right for the investor. The last thing I want to touch on is just how the payment plans work. You know, obviously investing in the UK for so many years, you can invest from as little as 10%, 5% in 6 months, generally equating to 25% pre-build, 75% loan. Now, it's more cash intensive in the UAE. Lending starts from 50%, which means that you've got to put in 50%. But it isn't necessarily you injecting 50% of the capital value on day one. So to use that 2 million property marker for the golden visa again, you need to put 1 million in over the build. Payments are then put against construction milestones. Again, when we look at protection for your clients or protection for great time. All right, it's normal. You might want to take over, Dave.
Yeah, no worries. Yes, I think what Sam was trying to get to is essentially just to give you an idea of what a payment plan would actually look like on an asset such as One River Point or Yas Riva, for example, in Abu Dhabi. But it sort of just shows that we cater to all sorts of investors, you know, not just the wealthy, but also the working class investors who are looking to split that deposit over a certain period of time, like 6 to 12 months. Sometimes even up to 24 months, depending on the build, because obviously we will have new projects coming out on a regular basis. But yeah, is that correct, Sam? Are we on the same page here? Your mic is still muted, I believe.
Yeah, sorry, the fire alarm's going off here, so I'm struggling to hear, but...
Right. Well, okay, no worries. Well, look, what I'll do is, if you just mute your mic for a second. This pretty much brings us to the end of the presentation. So Sam has covered pretty much every single angle of the UAE. One River Point and Yas Riva obviously gives you a breakdown and an idea of how much the payment plans are and how much an investor would need in order to go ahead. But I'd like to just open up the floor to anyone who might have a question. Yeah, so if you want to pop your questions in the chat, we'll go through them one by one. And also, I will make sure that everybody's got our contact details at the end of this webinar. So if you want to reach out and sit down on a one-on-one basis, we can actually go into a bit more detail on projects, individual projects, to give you a rundown of how that plan would look.
Okay, all good, guys. Well, thanks very much. I'm sure you found a bit of use in some of what was said today. Any questions, you know, please pop them over if they pop in after the webinar, and we'll look forward to having some follow-up conversations.
Amazing. We've got one question here. Are all invested properties that you offer still under development? We do have, I believe, Sam, do you want to answer that question?
No, they're not all off plan. Some of them are complete. Depends on your, your profile, what your goals are, and we can accommodate for that. So that is a good question. We did use a lot of off plan examples today.
Great, thank you. Yeah, like I said, if anybody else has got any questions, you're more than welcome. I mean, most of the guys that we invited will have my contact details, but we will email everybody individually with my details and Sam's details. So if there's anything else that pops into your head later on down the line, feel free to reach out to us. But once again, thank you very much for your time, and thank you, Sam. The presentation was amazing, so I would really appreciate your time as well. And have a good evening. Take care, everybody.
Cheers.